so they could get uh, uh, and call and get businesses flowing and the juice of economics growing again in Fall River. That would be a wonderful thing. And the money flush in Fall River. I just uh, I know some people don't like alcohol being a business in some areas, but it's a moneymaker for sure. And cream liqueur, especially. Um, Cream liqueur goes down smoothly, um, and uh, and it's a nice uh, liqueur. Also, the soda business, uh, bottling companies from all over. So soda's another business. Um, uh, there's many soda companies all over the country,
30 seconds.
and uh, and that's basically and also around the world. Just if we get their bottling plants here, we have and also the bourbon companies just bottling plants or and distilleries just for the companies. We just need the businesses, time for the businesses to come in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the time, and God bless you all.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Robert Camara, 127 Gagnon Street. The subject is budget and the law. You have 3 minutes when you're ready, Mr. Camara.
Council President, councilors, good evening. Before I begin, and you start the clock on me so I can see that sword of Damocles hanging over my head. I'd just like to say something for the record. I know at the last meeting, I was at the Cape at a macro seminar. You speak to the microphone. I was at the Cape at a macro seminar for the retirement boards in the state. And I sent that to someone, who shall remain nameless, to make sure that he came here to tell you that was just for your reference. There's a lot of, I have videotapes, I have cites from the laws, there's case law, there's a whole bunch of things in there that would be way too long for me to deal with here. So I told him to come here and respectfully ask you to read that particular thing, and because it's way too long for me to deal with. So I'm here to talk about the budget and the law. The reality is, we're talking about the ordinances. And in the letter, it talks about 43, chapter 1, it says, ordinances are permanent regulations. Permanent, not discretionary, permanent. 4433A clearly states that if you change an ordinance, you have to fund it. If it's done in the middle of the year, you need a supplemental appropriation, and it needs 2/3 vote of the council. So what I'm here to say is that, we are seeing violence, ordinances being violated, and they're being violated in the budget that has been sent to you, because you have salaries that are above ordinance. So I don't know what the attempt is to have you de facto increase that, but that's not true, in my opinion, because if you look at the law, you have to physically take a vote. And it says it when you fund things in a budget in 44 section 33A. And that's my problem. There are protocols. The protocols are the law that we follow in government. If you want to deal with healthcare, you deal with it under chapter 32B, sections 21 through 23, and other appropriate sections of chapter 150E. If you're dealing with labor, it's 150E. That's the collective bargaining law. When you're dealing with government, you're dealing with these chapters. And I am saying tonight that if you vote on a budget with misappropriated funds, it's not going to be legal. The fact is, we have salaries in it at $10,000 over what they are in ordinance. That's the taxpayers' money. And this has been going on for a very, very long time. And it's time for it to end. You have a fiduciary obligation, and I gave you a whole bunch of stuff at the hearing about fiduciary responsibility. Because there are 4 duties: the duty of care, the duty of loyalty, the duty of impartiality, and the duty of accountability. And the duty of care clearly states that, these are sections. It says, prior to making a business decision, all material information shall be reasonably available to them. So you know what the ordinance says, so they are reasonably available. And actually, that site is, it's also cite a court case, Moran versus Household Intern, Inc.
30 seconds.
There's also another section that says you must cast a critical eye on the numbers, not just do a perfunctory look at the numbers. You have a fiduciary, a legal responsibility, plus you all swore an oath. And the video is of the mayor swearing an oath to uphold the Constitution, and he's violating part of the first Article 7.
10 seconds, Mr.
State
Kamara.
laws, he's violating 41, 43, 44, and a whole bunch of others. And he's also violating the city ordinances, which he swore.
Thank you, Mr. Kamara.
And that is, there's a problem. It's problematic when a government is not following the law. I'm here to say that everything above ordinance should be taken out of this budget. And
Thank
if you
you, Mr.
want to do it,
Kamara.
I'm sorry.
That is 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I will leave then and I'll close with a quote, okay? See how many of you know where it's from. Governments are instituted among men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. So as I rise here today, I'm telling you, you have neither the consent of the law or the consent of the governed. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person signed up to speak is Nelson Vasquez, 210 Sunset Hill. Subject is accountability. When you're ready, you have 3 minutes, Mr. Vasquez.
So now that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, I hereby find Paul Coogan guilty for committing wrongdoing while he's in office. Last year, he broke the law. Last year, he utilized funds that required a 2/3 vote from this council and disregarded it. This year is carrying over with this. He's not living within the confines, within ordinances. The man has no respect for the law. And I just find it quite disrespectful because he campaigned on following the law. And also I find him guilty for violating his oath that he swore to uphold. So help him God. You see, back in 1970, President Nixon initiated an executive order to counter inflation, to put a freeze on all wages and prices to counter inflation, like what we're dealing with today. And you see, this company right here that I talked about on Monday, for 30 years, has kept the price at 99 cents because those in power have greater responsibility to look out for those, to give people a break. And the fact is, he still proceeded to come down with that budget. And quite frankly, that is another indictment on Paul Coogan for his lack of leadership and a true lack of compassion for those who cannot afford it. Because what I said on Monday, those numbers are not up for discussion. 27% of the people in the state are working families. 19% are disabled Americans. 38% are senior citizens. And I said it, that 38% of the seniors are going to get hit twice due to inflation. 10% this year, 10% next year. And I said in this chamber that Paul ought to initiate a moratorium, just like what Nixon did, to give people a break. He didn't listen to me. So what I'm waiting for to see is when the people hold him accountable for his actions. I'm looking forward to see what this council does, because we will fight for the taxpayers. We will give them back their money. I just think it's quite disrespectful that he goes above the law without giving a damn. And given the times we are living in, That's what you have to do. Because when people get those bills in the mail, especially the seniors,
30 seconds.
they're going to be crying because they can't afford it. We have somebody up there who just goes around thinking he could just do whatever he wants and not follow the law. And he is literally violating his oath. Broke the law. He's also showing lack of compassion. And he will be held accountable. So I
Thank you.
look forward to seeing what this council does to put up a vote of no confidence against him.
Thank you, Ms.
Because
Vasquez.
that's what needs to happen. Thank you.
Next person signed up to speak is Colin Dias, 560 Ray Street, and the subject is accountability. Three minutes, Mr. Dias.
Thank you, Council President and members of the City Council. I wanted to talk about, was brought up at the last few City Council meetings, some salaries that are in the budget. And I do have a question, and I think it's a similar question that was asked by a councilor in seat 3, if not the same exact question. And that is, can you have a budget where proposed salaries violate city ordinance? You have the mayor's chief of staff position with a proposed salary of over the maximum allowed $78,000, not to exceed. And then you have the mayor's special media position, which is bound to receive a 10% pay raise, which is the above maximum allowed 4% in any year. The fact that the mayor and the administration can once again violate city ordinance is reprehensible. And it's the city council's duty as the legislative body to provide a check to the overreach by this administration. And again, why hasn't this issue been addressed? And what is the response of the administration to why they think they can provide salaries that violate city ordinance? And another topic I want to address, and I won't go too much into it and I won't say any names. However, myself, like others last night, were disgusted on how our council president was treated. And I'm not going to go into specifics about the union negotiation. I don't know who's right. I don't know what happened. So he said, she said, which is a subject I'm not privy to. However, we citizens were just scolded for calling out the mayor a few weeks ago. So why do we get to call out the council president, who I have confidence in? I don't have confidence on the man on the 6th floor. And again, I think we should all come together, respect our leadership, and hold the administration accountable and do our job as the city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, is there anything further?
No, Madam President.
Thank you. Item 2 is a continuation of the discussion fiscal year 2023 municipal budget. Starting with the community service, if members of the administration want to come down. And it'll be inspectional services.
Good evening. I feel like we were just here. Directing your attention to page 221 of the budget. For just the sake of time, unless the council directs me otherwise, I'm going to dispense with a longer kind of summary and allow the department heads for this department and subsequent departments to jump right into their budget. Just as a very quick introduction, it's a 1.2% proposed increase in the inspectional services budget. And we can see some small increase in salaries and wages. I'll defer to Mr. Hathaway, our building inspector, and the department head to elaborate.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Is there any questions in regards to,
Counselor in seat 3, Council Vice President.
I only have one comment on your budget. And I'm well aware that the city council does not have the ability to increase. However, my comment is, last year in facilities maintenance, they had a $100,000 line item for upgrades. That was cut to 50,000. The other 50,000 was transferred to Mr. Hathaway's department. And it is not in this year's budget. It's something that was seriously needed. It's very difficult for him to perform his duties without being able to adequately take care of buildings, etc. And I'm very dismayed that for whatever reason, that $50,000 amount is not in this year's budget. And that is my only comment on his budget. With that, I yield.
Counselor, what line item was that in last year?
It doesn't exist.
Last year, did you say?
Last year, it was in facilities maintenance, 100,000. It was not in his budget. And then the administration agreed to cut the 100,000 to 50, which is why this year, facilities maintenance, their line item is 50,000. And the other 50,000 that was put in his budget last year, it no longer exists again.
Just a point of information,
Counselor?
I think the transfer was meant to go into the demos, right? The building,
yes,
vacancy
clean-
buildings and the
it's in the
demo,
cleanup account.
which is a separate account.
yes, correct.
So I guess the counselor in C3s was that transferred into that special revenue account?
Yes,
This year
Last year.
again,
last year.
was there any discussion of it being there this year?
No.
Usually, if there's a case for it, then the money would be asked to be transferred at a later date. Right now, I don't think we've identified it. We've got a balance in that account of
Of
about 53,000.
53,000.
And he's got a couple of cases he's looking at, and when he's at that point, we'll talk about the money. We'll talk
Okay.
about what
What-
funds
what-
might be needed.
If I may.
Yes.
So last year, I was fortunate enough to get an additional allotment of money, and we put that into the cleanup account and the revolving account for demolition, so that if there was any issues, I could just address them, because my budget for those accounts were very low. So the council voted at some point during this process last year to give me an additional 50, which came from the maintenance department budget.
Mhm.
Correct?
Correct. So I guess basically, so my stance is that I would hope that that practice would continue because it was very necessary.
If I can just, if you just look at the next page, on page 222, we were planning on transferring 15,000 as a minimum to the vacant lot account and 15,000 to the demolition account,
Right,
you know,
right.
in
which-
the budget, you know.
Right,
Yeah.
which is for a total of 30,000, correct. And last year, so I guess
Yeah.
my point was last year that was a $50,000 transfer.
Yes, total,
Yeah.
yes.
So I would have hoped that that would have remained at the same level. Again, I realize we can't increase, however, I just felt it necessary to bring that up. With that, I yield.
Thank you. Anything further for Mr. Hathaway? Counselor in seat 6, Counsel Pereira.
Yeah, I noticed that in your budget, you don't have any vacancies here. But are you fully staffed with all the workers that you need? 2 inspectors, plumbing and gas inspectors too?
I'm currently down 1 plumbing inspector, due to the fact that he just, he resigned from the city to take a position in the plumbing trade at a school, at the vocational school. It's an advance for him, believe it or not, versus being an inspector. So, yes, I do have that vacancy, and it is currently being filled as we speak. As far as the minimum housing, sanitation, 2 years ago, two inspectors. They fill in very graciously to sanitation or vice versa when there's help is needed. So right now, things are going okay, well. I've received bad news that I'm losing possibly losing another inspector in another category. And that could happen this week, and it's heartbreaking, but these are very hard working individuals, and I encourage them to better themselves if they feel the need to. So that's what's happening. I also have a opening for a clerk, that'd be in the minimum housing section. I lost the current clerk that I had to a job within this building in another department because of the pay scale. So that position is open and is filled. That individual happens to be a she, and she should be starting within the next couple of weeks. So as far as building inspectors, I have two. I have not asked for an additional one as of yet, or
Well-
as of this year.
I just know with all the building and, you know, that type of work that's going on around in the city, and they need to be inspected, and, you know, food truck events that we have, those need to be inspected, and restaurants need to be inspected. I just wondered how your staff was doing with just the minimum people you have working, and now with having others out. Ugh.
So
You're
it's-
replacing them quickly, though, to keep up?
We're doing our best to hire as fast as and rapidly as we can, because it hurts the other person that's covering for the second person while we're out, and we're holding our own. It's just heartbreaking to see that these experienced, dedicated people have to leave because I have tremendous respect for them due to the fact of their experience, their knowledge, and their honesty and sincerity to the city. And it bothers me that they have to leave, but I can't control that.
Are they leaving because of salary? Because we're kind of hearing that from different departments,
Yes, they
so
are.
they are. I mean, that's the catch-22. People are hurting, everything is higher, but we're losing people all the time because we can't
Yes.
pay them. And then to have somebody come in that doesn't have the experience that your people have already, and the knowledge, even the knowledge of the city. If I know where all the streets are in the city and, you know, just know my way around, somebody coming in to do that who doesn't, takes them longer to get places to do things. But with that, I yield. Thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from the council for Mr. Hathaway? Nothing? Thank you, Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you.
Next department is Health and Human Services.
Drawing your attention to beginning on page 227 of the budget. Probably the most complicated flow chart we have in city government.
Yeah.
And I'm going to defer to Tess Curran, who is our Director of Health and Human Services and Board of Health agent. I think it would be helpful, if you don't mind, Tess, to start with a conversation about city employees versus grant-funded departments, just so we really understand what that department's doing.
Sure. So
Briefly.
in the org chart, you can see the color key. So that light blue color is all city-funded positions. Within the Council on Aging, there's 2 grant-funded color codes. So those are that's the state formula grant, which is that orange color, and then CDA funded positions are that kind of reddish pink color, with the yellow in COA being CFC workers that come to support the Council on Aging. And then within HHS, that dark blue color are all additional grant funded positions that are all Mass Department of Public Health grants.
Counselor in seat 4, Counselor Kilby.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, the only question I have is,
post-COVID, hopefully, which will be soon, and I give you a lot of credit for all the hard work that you've done to protect the
That was
people of
tough.
Fall River and
Thanks. We
I
have a
remember talking
great
to you
team in the health
firsthand when-
department.
to be, Bristol Community College and other venues were giving out the booster shots.
Mhm.
So post-COVID, are these grants are gonna go away? So we're gonna lose, it is a complicated flow chart, but are we gonna lose a lot of these employees?
So not right now. So the Mass in Motion grant, we are actually just refunded for that grant. So that will start, and we'll have the opportunity to have at least 6 additional years with that grant. And that we actually received additional funding, so we'll be able to bring on more folks, which is a great opportunity for us. The tobacco control grant, that has been a longstanding grant and won't. I don't anticipate that leaving anytime soon. The contact tracing grant will end as it stands right now at the end of the next fiscal year. So that will be expiring June 30th, 2023. And then our shared services grant, which is that vacant epidemiologist position, that's again an opportunity that will potentially be a longstanding opportunity with the capacity to have at least about 10 years for that grant. And that's a grant with Swansea and Seacon.
Okay, so I think it's a very stable department. And thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 6, Counselor Pereira.
Ms. Curran, on the flow chart, you have 3 vacant part-time senior aides by CFC. And with a lot of the elderly that are struggling, many of the elderly are looking for little part-time jobs. Do you see those 3 positions being filled quickly, or?
So those we all work with CFC. So CFC really has to kind of provide those employees. So if people are interested who are in that CFC
They should
program,
contact
then
CFC?
they would be able to, yes.
Okay.
But all the grant funded and city funded COA positions,
Are full.
we had a number of vacancies, but at this time they're all full.
Thank you very much. And I thank you for all the work that you did these past 2 years with COVID. And I know that when I called with questions that people had or concerns, you were always right, spot on. So I thank you for that. I know it was a difficult time. Thank you. With that, I yield.
Thank you. Anything further for health? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next department is library.
So drawing your attention to page 232 of the budget. Actually, I'm sorry, 230 of the budget. No, I'm sorry. I
2:30.
yeah, I was right. Okay. So 235, there we are. Sorry about that. I think I might be missing a page in mine. That said, the library department head was scheduled to leave on vacation this afternoon, was here, as you know, I think as you saw last night, and unfortunately couldn't change her plans. So she asked me to go through the proposed budget for FY23. Couple things to take note of. There is a 3.2% increase. One of the important things to note is that there were, during FY22, there were 2 part-time positions that became a full-time position. That was at the request of the library. It was just becoming too difficult to fill part-time positions. I believe they lost 4 part-time people in FY22 who needed more hours, as you might imagine. And they weren't set up at that point, to make that position full-time. Moving forward, they're looking for the 2 part-times to become a full-time position. In addition, there's the municipal appropriation requirement. So if drawing your attention to 239, page 239. So there are certain increases that the library budget has in order to make its minimum contribution in order to get its municipal appropriation requirement grant of, I think, approximately $200,000. So I believe that the budget is set up at the 1.666687, I believe is approximately $14 more than they needed to have in order to make the percentage for the MAR. And that's basically a requirement that they spend a certain percentage of their budget on library materials, that they spend that they have a certain amount in their budget, which is where some of the increases came from. And then once they're able to do that and show that they've spent the correct percentages and the correct amounts, there's approximately $200,000 that they receive that in the past they've used for, I believe, some debt service, and going forward, they need for other expenses just to maintain the library. Do you have any questions about the library?
Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Reposo?
I'm interested about the bookmobile
Yeah.
program. I noticed that there's 2 vacancies. Is that still the case?
So the bookmobile is going to be delivered in January. So I believe that's been delayed once or twice since we originally decided to pull the trigger on the bookmobile. Those 2 vacancies are going to be bookmobile drivers that we're going to hire for once we have a date certain for the bookmobile to arrive.
So we don't know for sure when that bookmobile will be.
We're anticipating midwinter, but at this point, we don't have a date certain.
All right. Because as of right now, we only have one functional library. It's the main library, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on library? No?
No, I
Thank-
just,
Counselor in seat 6?
I feel badly that she's not here because the library has run a lot of really good programs and did a lot through COVID, but they've done some great programs with kids and, kudos to them for doing a good job. And I can't wait to get the bookmobile because I think it needs to move around, go to different areas of the city. With that, I yield.
Thank you. Anything further on library? Seeing nothing, thank you. Go to financial services. Director of Financial Services.
So I'm not sure if anybody has any specific questions, but what it looks like is a small increase in the Director of Financial Services salary. Is actually not, because there was, the budget for 2022 was amended and money was taken out because obviously there was not someone in place. So it's actually it's pretty level funded. And I can just keep moving along unless anybody has specific questions.
Okay.
Counselor in seat 3, Council Vice President.
Sorry, before we start, under other supplies, FY '22 was $100. It's up to $2,400.
Yeah, so the prior Director of Financial Services was purchasing things on her own through her other business. So, I mean, we will have supply needs and to update some things.
And conferences was 300. Now that's up 2,200.
So again, the conferences were being paid for utilizing another company that she participated in, so
So she took the burden on herself instead of putting it on the city. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Basically.
Let's get a tax write-off.
And the other one's only $100. In-state travel mileage, $100, which the price of gas, I suppose that's a reasonable number. You can only
Yeah.
fill your tank once with that now,
Yeah.
so. I believe that's all I have. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 2.
Just curious, how many conferences do you attend a year?
well, as I was supposed to attend 2 as of right now, but I only attended 1 because I'm here this week, so I didn't go to that one. Probably at least 3 to 4 trainings a year.
Anyone else in the department attend the conferences? Just yourself?
So no, within my whole block, there'll be others attending professional development and training.
How many people?
At least 3 to 4, and then 5, including myself.
Are those overnight conferences or? day
Some of them are
conferences?
overnight conferences, yes.
And how many people do you think will attend them? Just give me a number, 3, 4?
Well, about 5, including myself.
And how many conferences a year? 5 people are gonna go to 3 conferences?
5 people
Overnight?
will go to at least 2 conferences.
And you think $2,500 will cover that?
Well, no, I have some money budgeted in their blocks if we keep going.
How much is budgeted in their blocks?
So in the assessor's budget, which I was getting.
$6,000?
6,000.
All right. Because I was gonna say, it's a pretty good bargain for 5 people to stay overnight for
Oh, no,
$2,500.
we keep moving along.
All right.
Yeah, so these are all state run and we're required to go to these conferences
Mhm.
for certain certifications. So,
Well, no, I understand. I just
Okay.
didn't see the amount.
Oh,
adding
yeah,
up to
they're-
How many people were gonna go and attend
Yeah.
and stay overnight for 3 conferences for 2,500? All right, with that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from the council? Nope. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next assessors.
Yeah, ask Richard to come down with us if you have any questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Gonzalez, Chairman of the Board, City of Fall River Assessors Office. What I'd like to do before we get into my budget, I came across an article, June 1st, and as I come here every year, and I'm not picking on anyone, but Joe Camara every year asks me, you know, how are we in comparison to New Bedford? He always asks that question. What's the tax rate? What's the values? What percentage we go up? So there's a competition there, Fall River versus New Bedford.
Yeah, that's the basketball days.
And, right, yeah, but it carries over in everything we do.
Twin Cities.
You got it. So let me just show you give you just a quick synopsis of what I found. June 1st in the, it's actually Ed's newspaper, Dartmouth Chronicle. It states, let me find the piece of the article. It says, national brands, New Bedford is trying to move them into their city. So it says, the city of New Bedford is actively recruiting the following companies to move in. Starbucks, Boston Market, Chipotle, Chick-fil-A. Guess what? We got them. We got them. So we're doing something right. They're here. And that's a tribute to the administration. It's a tribute to the council, citizens of Fall River, and the investors, because they have the faith in investing in our city. What New Bedford doesn't have, and maybe they'll get someday, we got Amazon. And Amazon is bringing in value, well, and I should say in value, well over 58 million. And I don't have the taxes in front of me, but also a good amount in personal property. And that's only 25%. So I think as the business I mentioned, credit again should be given to the city administration, city council, and most important, my office, or the office that I'm chairman of the board of, assessors. And let me tell you something that and again, I don't want to point out members, but Sean sits on as a member. Linda sits on as a member. Council President sits on as a member. It's called the TIF Committee. Now, we sit and listen to a lot of TIFs, and it's so complicated in our business because now we have TIFs, ties, abatements, exemptions, and pilots. So, and with all that going on, these things are not status quo. They change. A lot of times we have to come back. We give a TIF. We come back and corporation changed their corporation. They changed it from a real estate to a condo. We have to go back and redo the TIF because our job and my position is to protect the city of Fall River. So when we sign into a TIF agreement, and not only do we have to monitor them every year, we make sure that the policies governing this are correct. So there's a lot that goes on in the office, there's a tremendous burden on the staff. Currently, I thank you for approving the funds to do the on-site reinspection process that we were mandated to do by the DOR. They started in the south end a few months ago, it was around April. We have well over 9,000 properties to do. They already currently went to 3,300. So they're a third of the way. But the hardest is yet to come, because once they start getting to the center of the city with the multi-deckers, that's going to take some time. We monitor them on a bi-weekly basis. We haven't heard of any complaints yet. We have the supervisor come in and give us a bi-weekly update. The Board of Assessors does a tremendous job in monitoring and asking them questions to try to find any problems and try to have the quick fix. Now, I want to just bring out one more piece of data information. Last year, I came to the council and I had asked the council to go to a June 30th growth. We were always January 1st. And one of the reasons was to tie in with another item that we have called supplement billing. What supplement billing is, if you build a new house and it's not done in the current fiscal year, you get charged for what you have. But if you finish it in the fiscal year, there's an occupancy permit. We go out there, we tax you for the rest of the date of the occupancy to the date of the fiscal year. So that, moving that date from January 1 to June 30th, last year we enjoyed one of the largest new growths we've ever had. 3,379,723. Now, a lot of cities and towns would give their right arm for that number. Part of that number, I understand, was Amazon, but it shows all the hard work and all the dedication and commitment that the elected officials have and the confidence they have in the Board of Assessors. The last 6 years, we have averaged $2,156,948,000 in new growth. Again, you can look around. That is an awful high number. And again, I believe that's because the investors have the confidence in the government and have the confidence in the city of Fall River. And with that, questions?
Counselor in seat 4, Counselor Kilby.
Just one question, I believe. The reval's coming up, so are we adequately staffed for that?
Well,
and I know we're getting some help.
That'll be on
consultant-wise.
the reval. The reval will be for FY24. Now, it was a surprise to
Sorry
us,
interrupt you. However, the work starts before that.
and that's why we have the crew out there now.
Good.
So one of the things that I want to point out is that it was unaware to myself that we had a deadline. This deadline of the crew really had to be done last year. So the administration and myself met with DOR, which monitors our department quite a bit. And we were able to get an extension. And that extension started this April. And again, I thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for providing the funding and allowing us to go through so we can start this and continue. But next year for FY24, we have to think about what we might need in addition, because there's going to be more of stat crunching. When you're doing a reval, it's a 5-year project now. You do it once every 5 years.
It used to be 3.
It used to be 3. We were able to get it to 5. And by the way, the DOR has the say on who goes to 5 and who doesn't go to 5. We passed that grade, so we're at a 5. And what'll happen at that, there's going to be some added investigations that we normally don't do in a non-reval year that we're going to have to do in the reval year, and this costs money. But what I want to make a point is after this project of the inspections are completed, at some point we have to make a commitment on how we're going to address, because this inspection is over 10 years. So how are we going to address this down the road in the 10-year process? Because this was an awful lot of money. And to just sit back and not do nothing. And it's not that we didn't do nothing. It's just that we didn't commit to the dollar amount for the staffing. Causes us to come up with these big numbers down the road. So we may have to have an ongoing process moving forward. And it's been talking the last time I came here about a data lister down the road. And we may have to address that maybe a couple years down the road. There's no need to address it now because we have a crew of 6 people as data listers to complete the project.
Great. Just as by way of comment, I just want people to realize that city government starts with your department. And it's all based on fairness. It's based on, individual property owners paying a fair tax, a fair assessment. There's tremendous accountability. Councilor Dean would attest to this. He's more schooled in this than I am, but for the amount of people in your office and the size of this city, you're one of the most overachieving staffs in that department.
It's a tribute to them.
It's the accountability from the state is just, it's tremendous in terms of, again, wanting people with a fair value, and plus the abatements and the field work that has to be done, and it's just monumental. So, thank you, Madam President. I yield.
Thank you, Counselor in seat 2. Counselor Camara?
Thank you. Mr. Aggie, I know you talked about people having confidence in the elected officials and in everyone that's here and stuff, but do you think a lot of that new growth also had to do with the price of the value of land in the city being a lot less expensive than other places?
No, let me tell you why, Counselor. We have to, that part of it is the inflation part. We have to extract that. So when we calculate new growth, I'll try to do this, explain this as quick as possible. So you can do new growth 2 ways. The DOR says you can either do new growth on existing tables, so that sales that we come up with, the inflation of what the sales is driving the market up, doesn't affect new growth, or you can adjust your tables with the inflation and then go back in and put the new growth. So the new growth is not any inflation. It's just simply the cost of the deck. And it's the cost of the deck in comparison to either the new value of that.
Right, so you're talking about the value and the new growth. But what I'm talking about is that everything in this region is cheaper than other parts of the state. Electricity is cheaper than Boston, Brockton. It's more economical feasible. The wages that you pay people are less than other parts of the state. So a lot of people who came here, invested here, are doing it because it's worth the bang to their buck.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think I just want to make it clear that new growth has to be, when we calculate it, it has to be apples to apples. So basically it has to be old table to old table or new table to new table. And DOR is very, very precise.
I understand, but I was just saying, like, I heard what you were saying, that people have confidence in the elected officials, and I think a lot of it had to do with, they're looking at their wallet and how much they can save if they bring a business here, if they buy tenement houses here and fix them up. And if you're looking at the rest of the state, this was a great place and still is a great place to live, raise a family, and economically feasible to do so in a great area. And up until a few years ago, it wasn't that known to too many people until outside people started investing in here, coming here and saying, hey, there's a great bargain and you can, sell your house at a pretty penny up in Dorchester and Rosendale and move down the South Coast. And we have beautiful waterways. We have close proximity to Newport, Rhode Island and Providence. And when you want to go to Boston, it's only 45 miles. So it's a great place to live. It's a great place to invest in. And I think I appreciate you saying, they had a conference in us. I don't think they know who we are. I think it's probably they're looking at their wallet. So this is a great place to live. The bargains there are really good. And the school department's made a lot of changes. We've invested in our education, brand new buildings, paid our teachers a good amount. Now we're getting good educators. We're making progress there as well. So I think it's a lot of things that bring people to this community. And as Councilor Kilby said, your department has done a great job with what you have. I've seen it over the years, and it's a tribute to you and everybody that works there. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor in seat 1. Counselor Kadim?
Thank you. So my question, you actually kind of touched base on it a little bit. Just in fiscal year 2018, we had budgeted the residential data lister but we never hired them. So what was the reason? So it's off the books now. So I just want to have a conversation in terms of, because I know we were talking about the 10-year reval and trying to get that completed.
I think by not back in 18, the reason that I mean, I really just don't know. I wasn't privy to the actual
I'm
decision
sorry,
why.
not 18, last year, this current fiscal year, FY22.
Well, the reason why for 22 was because DOR sprung it out in 21 that we had to have a full measuring list. And there's no way by hiring one data list could do 9,000 houses within a year. So we didn't want to be in, I mean, I think, and I go back to the olden days, and it's like the Grateful Dead concert. I got Ed here and myself and you, remember the meetings we had with the DOR saying you guys can't set a tax rate. The weeks that we spent, the months that we spent going back and forth and back and forth. And, you know, I learned from that. And I think that I said, there's no way, what can we do? And pretty much the issue was, guys, you're gonna get a pass 1 year, get it done. And I think as a tribute, the olden days, I don't want to go back.
Yeah, just in terms of the Grateful Dead comment, I'm the only one that's still employed. The two are retired. I'm just saying. So, I guess where I was going with this, if the intent was and still is to get data listers, so we can make sure that the inspections were meeting I guess our target, right? Arbitrary target number. So whatever the number of households and businesses divided up over a 10-year will dictate how many inspections we should be doing in a given year, right?
Oh,
So,
yeah, absolutely.
so whatever that number is, if we feel like we need 2 listers to go out there and actually start doing that, or 3 listers over a number of periods, I think we should start building it into the budget. And I'm just, I guess, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't pull the trigger. Even I know it wasn't going to help you with the list, but I think it would have got us, at least your office, some assistance in getting to the point where we're going to have enough inspectors to go out there and do, the listing. So outside of that, so it really is just a statement in terms of that. But so my one non-budgetary question that I'm allowed to have tonight. So do you know how many inspections we should be targeting in a given year?
Well, I mean, if we do the raw numbers, just simply divide 14,000 by 10 years.
Okay.
It's about
1,400.
1,400, right? Okay. I just didn't.
But remember, and this is what, always in the back of my mind, cost is always in the back of my mind. I'm not a spender. So when we sit down and we have 1,400, we don't simply have to just say, well, we need somebody dedicated for 1,400, because we have an administrator, and in this budget, there is 2 assistants.
Mhm.
So if you do the math, there's 3 people right there. So maybe we're looking at 300 a year, and the DOR would give us all kind of passes in the sense that the abatements that we go on, that counts as an inspection. Sales analysis, we have well over 400 sales a year. And building permits, there's like 1,000.
Right.
So we can meet our quota. That's why I think we have to sit back. 24 is a fiscal year. Let us digest what needs to be done moving forward about the lister. And after we've got a full measuring list, which they're doing a wonderful job, we can move forward.
Okay. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 6, Counselor Pereira.
Yeah, Mr. Gonzalez, you said there's 2 assistants, but in the budget, it looks like there's 1 vacancy, an assistant assessor too.
Well,
No?
There's one vacancy.
so after we submitted this, actually, we now have filled the assistant assessor, and we have a vacancy for an assessor.
Okay. So we'll look at hiring because he's obviously needs that.
Yes.
How much do you have set aside for different exemptions?
I think we use almost 900,000?
Yeah, in total.
In total.
So, because statutories are around, 500,000? About
Well,
500,000.
we have 900,000.
In this budget, I think we used the 5-year average of the, abatements and statutory exemptions. And I think it's around 9.
Yeah.
I have to look it up.
Well, the
950
abatement-
maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's in that range.
The abatements people will come in if they feel they're paying too much on taxes, they'll come in.
Mhm.
Part of the problem is that some of the people that want to come in for abatements, if they own multifamily houses but haven't sent in the paperwork of what their rents are and all of that, it causes a bit of an issue. But the exemptions for a lot of the elderly, people over a certain age, are you going to be doing anything? Or is Nellie going to be doing anything like that to let people know what some of the exemptions are? Because quite frankly, I know a lot of elderly people that have called me that are on social security and own, a 2-family or own a 1-family home and are really struggling. But now they've gotten older, so they fall under the categories to be put in for exemptions.
That's a great question, Counselor. At about maybe 2 or 3 board meetings ago, the board voted that after or around the end of the summer, we want to take our meetings to the neighborhoods. And by taking our meetings to the neighborhoods, we can address those issues, those type of issues. I'd like to address neighborhoods in terms of, Nell went out to the Flynn Association a few, maybe a couple of months ago, maybe. And I thought that was a great idea. What I'd like to do is extend it to all our neighborhood associations. And at the same time, give out any type, we have publications.
Correct.
Hand out those publications and make sure the word is out. Let's make it a point. The Board of Assessors does not deny anyone deserving of an abatement and an exemption.
No, I think that's good. I just know that there's a lot of people out there struggling. And if they are eligible for an exemption and they can get it, but they don't know about it, they've always prided themselves in just paying their bill. And now times are tough for some people. So I just think if we can get that message out there, I want those people to know that as a council, we're trying to help them as well. And I just wondered how much you had set aside for that. But thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. I appreciate your time. With that, I yield.
Thank you. Anything further on assessors? Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Next category is auditor.
Okay.
So as you can see, the audit department has an increase. We've actually, there was a reactivation and a reorganization where we've now filled the assistant city auditor position that was vacant since 2020. So what it looks like, there's actually one increase in a position, but we're actually filling back to previous levels. So that's what's causing the major increase there. As well as we're utilizing other purchase services where we have some consulting and training actually that's in there, because we have a very new young staff in that department. So we do need to be providing extra training to them there as well. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions about this.
Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Reposo.
Yeah, my question was around the consulting, actually. What, is it a long-term thing that we're looking to do, or just kind of short-term to get everybody up to par?
I'm looking at utilizing a couple hours here and there to get them up to date, to have them to be able to have a mentor available to work with them.
Within the department or outside the department? As far
The-
as
the
the
consultant?
consulting to be the mentor, or someone within?
No,
being
an
the mentor?
outside consultant to come in.
So for the next year essentially, or?
The
Do you
next
have a
few months
timeline?
at least.
Few months, okay.
Yeah.
And that's going to be enough to do that?
Well, I'll have to reevaluate it as we move along.
I yield, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on auditor? Seeing none, treasurer collector?
So the treasurer collector actually has a small decrease, and we've actually reorganized in this department a little bit as well, where we will be adding, I'm sorry, no, well, if we just do collectors first, there's actually a vacant position that we've been able to fill recently, so that's kind of exciting, because it gets very busy through the summer with that position. But other than that, all of the other categories, there's actually a small 1% decrease in the collectors department. I don't know if anybody has any questions regarding collectors specifically.
Any questions? No?
So if we move along to the treasurer's department, we have an increase in this department as well, where we have actually, through a reorganization, we've reactivated positions that were in the budget through up to FY 2020. And I think because of COVID, things were not filled or eliminated. But there is a definite need, and the collectors department is very important to the city because they help make sure that we bring in the money and people are paying their taxes. And at this point, I actually was informed today that we're at our lowest. Where is it?
Should be in the treasurer's.
Yeah, it's, I moved it
section,
up.
the treasurer's section.
Double dip
Sorry.
There it is. Yeah. Sorry. We're at the lowest balance of taxes owed since 2010 right now. And that's attributed to our treasurer collector and working very diligently.
Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Reposo.
So the other purchase services for the city treasurer, shredding and consulting went up about $33,000. So I'm assuming it's not the shredding, so I'll go with the consulting.
That's
So
me.
Huh?
That's in case I decide to come in, a few days a week, if she needs the support, or if the city needs the support.
So that line item is
It's an
particularly
estimate.
you.
It's an estimate.
Oh, okay. No, that's what I'm asking. So
The shredding is just,
it's not the shredding.
Small
I
amount.
clearly realize that. Yeah,
Huh?
I'm just curious when I look at last year to this year.
Yeah.
So you're basically saying the increase from FY 22 of 2,500, which became 22,500, which is now 55,000.
Great.
Is all because of you.
Right.
Cool. I yield. Thank you.
Anything further on treasurer collector? Counselor in seat 2.
I just have to ask the question. How much more consulting are you going to be doing?
well, hopefully,
10 years ago, you told me
Well,
you're ready to
Good Fri-
retire.
I know, I'm working on it. I've got Friday, Bridget's giving me Fridays off now, so that's happy, right, just for now. There's a lot of work to be done, but it's getting there. A lot of new people in the city, in the finance department, all at one time.
Yeah, my point is we should just hire people.
No, I know that would be a problem. No, I don't want to be hired.
No, hire people.
Oh, well, no,
He's
but you
trying.
have, but there's still, believe me, there's not a lot of, how can I put this? Experienced people that can really,
Oh, I know that.
hit the
We
ground
lost a
running.
good one.
That's all
We
I'm
lost a
saying.
few good ones.
yeah. I mean, just good people, but it takes a little bit of time to make sure that, we need to put some of these procedures back in place.
You have to be the longest running consulting in the history of the city. I mean, you just
No,
have to be in
In
different
fairness,
departments.
in
It's
fairness, Counselor, I
amazing.
mean, there was a
I'm,
gap there.
I'm just letting you know, seriously. I mean, I know you do a good job and I understand it, but it's funny how I just sit and see you come back every year and it's like, we need to hire this person so I can retire. And then you're back again. And the person that we hired, he retired. Like,
There's been a lot of, there's been a lot of changes.
yeah, and you've been there throughout all of them. All right, with that, I yield. Good luck to you.
Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Reposo.
Yeah, I guess I'm curious. I'm not convinced that there's a game plan long term as far as how to Council C2's point. You've been here a while. You
No,
continue to be.
not really.
Well, not really, but you've been
But
around
I
a
mean,
while. But
this
I
was a
I
huge
guess my
gap.
question becomes, what is your timetable as far as getting everyone up to speed? When are you going to be in a position where you're not going to have to rely on more consulting? I guess is my question. What is your game plan?
My game plan?
Yes,
Okay.
going forward.
So my game plan right now is I have a very new young staff that does not have a lot of experience. So I do need to utilize Ed, and as we have been cutting back. So my game plan is to keep, I mean, I also just arrived. So, I've got a lot of gaps to fill in, I have a couple of positions that I need, key positions that I need to hire. So we're already pulling back Ed's time, and I will continue to do that, and then maybe bring him back when we notice that we want to implement something and I need some resources to help do that and help bring staff up to par. I can't do it alone. That would be unrealistic.
Nor do I expect you to.
Okay.
But again, I'm just trying to get an idea of how long. I mean, if you're looking to train your staff, right, and what you want to accomplish, how long do you think that's going to be?
I don't know. I've only been here 6 weeks.
Well, I've not been here much longer than you, so join the club.
So I can speak to this a little bit.
Thank you.
Sure. Just for some context, I'm not trying to avoid the question, but I think it's important for the council as well as anyone who's watching, just to
many
kind of
weeks have you
understand
been
a
here?
little bit of history. And I haven't really been here that long either. But that to some extent illustrates the
Yeah.
point. So last year, we lost Mary Sahadi as a CFO. That was a significant loss to the city. She had done some really remarkable work. And not only that, the work was really complex. And I think in part, one of the things we observed is that the complexity of the work really required all of the time of the department heads in auditors, in CFO and treasurer collector, and really didn't afford the opportunity we would want for people to be able to manage and for people to bring people up. And so taking a step back and sort of evaluating what's needed, we're realizing that Bridget needed to hit the ground running. She's been here 6 weeks and has really spent every minute of that 6 weeks doing an incredible deep dive into the budget, into where the budget has been, where it's going, trying to make a plan, trying to really understand, in a very, complete way, what it is we're presenting to you here tonight and last night, and who knows what other time. And at the same time, what Ed has been doing is he's been working with some of the younger, newer people. We have a brand new auditor. We have a brand new assistant auditor. We have a young treasurer collector who's doing an amazing job. But he's still, growing and developing in his position. We have a new assistant treasurer. We have a new CFO who has a ton of experience, but has certainly her hands full. So it's unfortunate timing. And I'm not going to give you excuses that, oh, hiring's hard. Hiring's hard for everybody. Anybody here who has to hire people can tell you it's hard. That's life. That's just the way it is. What's really hard, and perhaps more important, is then making sure that you invest in the people you get. And that's what Ed's been doing. And I'll tell you what, it's an invaluable education for those people. I don't see this intensive consulting relationship we have with Ed continuing in perpetuity. We're going to draw that down because I think Ed wants to go home and retire. And
That's right.
perhaps more importantly, we want some of these young people to become increasingly independent and increasingly competent. They're already really talented, really smart, and they're going to get there. So I see it as less than half the year of the fiscal year. I think by January, we're going to be in a really good shape.
That's what I was looking for.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, educating and investing in professional development to get a young staff up and running is critical. I also share a concern in this idea that we're getting a return on our investment. So again, young people coming in, learning, which is perfectly acceptable. We want to make sure we retain those people that we invest so much time and effort and money into to do the job to the best of their ability, not become great. I've been trained in Fall River. Now I'm going to leave.
Right.
It's important and critical that that investment shows the fruits of that labor.
I will say that one of the things I've observed is that the focus on team building, so not just skills building, not just paying people a certain amount, but on team building, so they develop a real affinity for the people they work with, has been a focus of Bridget's, both in her own immediate department, in the treasurer collector's offices that she's in, as well as the auditor's department. And I feel like that's yielding incredible results. I think we talk a lot about retaining people with money, and that's certainly an incredibly important thing. People need to pay their bills and buy groceries and support their families. But almost as important, people need to come to work every day and not feel frustrated that they don't have the knowledge or the skills to do what they need to do. And that's the investment that Ed is making in them. And I think people who are working in this city, and I believe this very sincerely, if you were to talk to them, now versus 6 months ago, I think a lot of folks in a lot of different departments are feeling just more consistency, more security, more just an understanding and a clarity of what's expected than they have. And I attribute a large part of that to Ed's work and Bridget's work over the last, certainly Ed over the last, 7 months or so, and Bridget even since she's been here for 6 weeks.
And lastly, just a quick question as far as we're doing the internal consulting, and Ed, you're working with this young staff. Are we sending this young staff out to do other field experiences to get some
Yeah,
on-the-ground training?
so we're actually coordinating and providing some mentors. Ed's helped hook some of them up with some, people in other municipalities. We've made some connections at the last conference I was at that we're going to be going out to visit 2 cities and invite them here. They've actually implemented the munis that we're going to be doing. So, and they're doing some of the things that I would like to implement. So we're making connections, and that's really how you do it. You have to start making connections, making friends around the state. And so we're doing that. I'm helping them make those connections so that we can, all work together and everybody's harmonious. And I'm very much about team building, but I'm also very much about utilizing free assets by making those, other colleagues and professional relationships.
Great. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 4, Counselor Kilby.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 1, Counselor Kadim.
Thank you. I just wanted to, I guess, kind of jump on the conversation with regard to the consultants and the training. Quite frankly, I don't even think the amount that's budgeted is even adequate. So, when we start looking at the city of Fall River, I think Fall River has done a terrible job in terms of training. We just questioned conferences, $2,500. You want my honest opinion, it should be $10,000 in her budget, $10,000 in every financial department for training. That's the only way we're going to build a farm system within. So when people leave, you talk about department heads. We hire department heads to fill these positions, but we never train them to be department heads, right? We hire them to be subject matter experts, but not to be managers and supervisors, right? So I just go through and I look at human resources, 0 training for department heads. There is no training. I don't know that of any training that department heads have taken for management or leadership, right? So, I think the city administrator mentioned about investing, right? We are not doing a good enough job of investing in our employees, right? So that's why when I constantly talk about capital improvement, salaries come into it. There's a whole lot that comes into making sure we retain people, because I think Counselor in seat 7 talks about the retention, right? You don't want to invest, and you can never avoid this, but you don't want to invest in training only to have folks leave, right? But the problem with that is if you don't check all the boxes, then you're never going to stop that revolving door. So checking the boxes is making sure, number one, we have the investments in training and that we got the proper training going, and that we're actually pushing to make sure that, folks and department heads are signed up to whatever association it is. I know Nick was here talking about SHRM. He's on with the Massachusetts Municipal HR. That's where you start to learn and interact with your colleagues. You get invaluable training that may not be necessarily expensive for the city, but there is training that needs to take place that you should be, and we should be sending people. The Collins Center at UMass Boston, they do a leadership training, and department heads can get certified. And it's I believe it's a 5-week program of 1 Friday every single month. When I went to CCONC, the first thing I did was make sure that we did that. I hired them to come in specifically for all my department heads. So every Friday, all the department heads were required to have this training for leadership to understand how to manage people, right? This is something we're not doing. So I would say that if we're going to talk about it, we talk about it with the police department, we talk about it with the fire department. There is legitimate training. And that's why when you look at police, fire, EMS, they have required training. Dispatch has required training. We don't have the required training unless you've got a certification, which again, as a treasurer and accountant, you have to go get some continuing education credits, but we're talking about an hour, 2 hours. I think we just need to internally do a better job as counselors to make sure that we're pushing that message so that when we get folks in, we can retain them, but we're also making sure that we're constantly building their skill set. And that deals with managing people and the subject that they're talking about. So I would say, I know we look at consultants and we kind of, it's got that negative aspect to it, but I think we need to make sure that, to your point though, when we have Ed here, Ed should be making sure that he's passing on the knowledge, that it's not just hoarding the knowledge, right? To make sure that it's not job security, right? And I know Ed doesn't do that, right? So it's really making sure that we're passing this knowledge off and working on it. So with that, I think I'd like to see more training in the budgets moving forward.
Can I just
personally.
comment on that? So yeah, Ed definitely doesn't want to be here. So. But there's also as we all know, there's a skills gap between electricians, any of the, yeah. But there's also a massive skills gap in accountants. And so because of that, the state is talking that in their bill is about, I think about 200 million that they're going to be giving out in grants to try to fill skills gap within municipal government. Because the problem is years ago, there used to be, the departments were heavier. And then as budgets we kept cutting and cutting and cutting. Well, you're not teaching anybody, you're not growing them up. Like people are not coming down and then, moving up the ranks, they're leaving. So I'd like to try to stop that. And that's where I'm trying to also incorporate, but with this team building is teaching the lower staff. We're like helping, doing a lot of cross training. And that's my goal so that we don't lose people. And if we do lose someone, we've got somebody right there that's ready to like pick up and, learn a few more things and they can start moving up so that we can keep people in the city to keep that institutional knowledge that frankly, we've lost a lot of it in the finance department.
Counselor in seat 8, Counselor Washington.
So I just want to speak to the frustrations about having a new staff.
Can you just speak into the microphone?
Yep. So I just want to speak to the frustrations of having a new baby staff. I run and develop programs often. So it's extremely frustrating to have new staff in and out all the time. So I just want to caution, first of all, the city is so fortunate to have Ed and have that institutional knowledge. We would be lost. Just being here and learning everything that you do is amazing. So to have that is just amazing that you still want to come back all the time. I mean, that's just, I know you say you want to go, but we are very fortunate and you're very fortunate and your department is. I'm from the school that you have to go slow to go fast. And so I believe that in order to sustain your staff and plan for sustainability right away with your staff, you spend the time and the effort. I know that there is always a dollar amount attached to consulting, but to have a good consultant, really, you can't put a dollar amount to that and to someone that has that institutional knowledge. So I just question and I caution people to go slow in this area to be able to go fast and to retain your staff because someone spoke to it, I don't know, but it can become very frustrating if you're not sure of your job and you're new and you don't want to make a mistake. And so to have that knowledge to rely on is, you really can't put a dollar amount on it.
And this department's very important to the city. I don't,
Yeah.
some people don't always think that the accounting is important, but it really is.
That's the lifeline. So I do. And so I just caution that so I can understand that and I yield.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 7, Counselor Pozo.
Yeah, and I echo what Councilor Kadim said. I think for what I'm just looking at, and no offense to you, Ed, but I'm looking at transition, right? Eventually, you're going to wean off, but that's going to have to be replaced with long-term professional development. So once the institutional knowledge is built back up, and we're in a comfortable position where you can, reduce to nothing, something comes in to replace that, and that's continuing training into what Councilor Kadim said. That's what I'm trying to advocate for. Because as an educator and as a principal, I use consultants to come in and help teachers. But that's not the long-term solution. Once you get them up to where you want them to be, there's other trainings that you're going to institute. So that's all I'm getting at.
Yeah, and that's
when
that's part of developing your staff at the upper level, but and making them understand that my expectation is they're teaching the staff beneath them.
Absolutely.
It's not about it's not a job security thing. Nothing
No,
angers me more. Well, a lot of people manage like that.
And I'm not insinuating that. Again, I'm just looking for you to tell me that, Ed is here, Ed is helping your young staff get where they need to be. But in the long-term planning, when we do this again next year and the year after that, we're going to supplement his consulting with something else that's going to help continue to build them to a higher level. Because they're going to be great, but we want them to be better than great.
So your full support will be there when I have conferences at a higher level.
Well, I mean, and I'll tell you, conferences are fabulous, right? To go off for 2 days and by the first day you're already burnt out because you heard so much. But I'm talking about on-site continuing training, not only within the building, but also to going to other places and seeing other people and kind of networking with other treasurers and auditors and what have you.
And we've already started doing that in just these short 6 weeks. So.
And I'm a very happy city councilor. With that, I yield. Thank you.
I just have one quick comment, if you don't mind, Council.
Sure.
And then the only comment I wanted to make is, so a few months back, we started some intensive training in the assessor's office with the assistant clerical staff. I mean, it's expensive, but it's necessary. You need to really make sure, because the assessor's office is a pivotal point. It generates, obviously your real estate tax revenue, and it's getting more complicated rather than what I call just the real estate. It's pilots, it's TIFs, it's you name it, solar farms, whatever hell else comes down the pike. And the laws are constantly being upgraded. So we did start training with that department, and it is expensive. It's, it's like sometimes, well, what some people think is expensive, I don't, like $600 for an employee to take one course. But these courses are specialized in what they do, as far as working with, parcels and personal property and things like that. So, I mean, that's an important part of it. It's just that the budget has to have money in it. It's like we heard the other night, on OSHA training, we need to really identify all these different levels because there's a lot of different levels of training.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor in seat 2, Counselor Kamara.
Thank you. I just don't want to go much further, but Ed, how much time do you spend a day training people in the department?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't, it's 10 to 2. I mean, I've tried to do that, but with the budget process and the new, people being replaced and the vacancies starting to be refilled, some weeks I've had to up it, like tonight, sitting here, you know what I mean? I mean, I had to up it a little bit, but then I'll go back to, tuning it down. So I'm really not spending, I mean, in the first several months, I mean, I try to spend like not even as like 20 hours a week, sometimes 21. I don't want to work full time.
No, I understand. I get it. And I know, I hope you understand that I teach
Yeah,
a lot about
I know
it.
that,
So
yeah.
I think you do
Yeah.
do a good job, but I
And,
think
and
it's-
I'm trying to, obviously, I'm not looking for a career.
No, I
I've
understand. But
already worked my
I think
career.
as my colleagues said in C1 and my colleagues said, what is the plan going forward?
Yeah, and that's part of the
And
plan,
we have to train these people
Yeah, absolutely.
quicker and sooner. And I think what you said is, I was going to mention that, cross-training. If someone's not in the department, someone should be able to step in and just pick right up where that one person was left off. If they call in sick, if they can't make it to work, whatever happens, they go on vacation. And we need to do that in other departments too. So, I mean, it's just something that we need to have so that people are able to do the job. I know in the elections office years ago, when someone wasn't there and it was short staffed, they'd pull people from the clerk's office to go work up there and fill in that position. And that's, type of
Yeah, and I'm instituting a lot of that in the departments now. I've been talking to our collector treasurer about doing that within just the collector treasurer's office, because there's times that line gets wrapped around.
right. So you go over and you help them out
Yes,
yeah. And it's
yes.
something that needs to be done more of. I think it's just it's important that people be able to do more than just one specific thing. And everyone likes to specialize in one thing, but I think if you can have people jump in when someone's, overwhelmed, it's a significant break to that individual. So just want to make sure we're, heading down that path, and, and maybe I'll see you here for the next 15, 20 years, who knows?
Well, then he'll be here and I won't be, so.
Neither will I. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on treasurer collector?
Yep.
Counselor in seat 6?
The only question that I had was, tell me a little bit about what's going on with tax title and how that's moving. I know that in speaking with Matt Thomas, a lot of this tax title work, and in Boston, the courts with COVID, everything is kind of backed up. But how are we doing with that, or with foreclosures or what have you?
One quick comment, he is an invaluable asset to the city.
He is.
And, and to the city administrator and the CFO, and continues to,
As you are, many of my colleagues respect Counselor in seat number 1 because he was a city administrator and continues to do a good job in Seekonk. And you're all looking at his mentor. When Sean first came on, there was a good mentor for him.
About things from Sean.
So I'm glad you taught him well.
Yeah.
So that's perfect example of what you can do for others in the city. Thank you.
So again, I spoke that we have our lowest since 2010.
Correct.
It's about 9.6 million in total, and 1.9 million of that's outstanding from FY22. And my treasurer collector has a commitment that he'd like to get that cut in half by the end of the summer.
Good. Good. That's the only question I had. Thank you very much. I yield.
Anything further on treasurer collector? Seeing nothing, next is debt service.
What was that?
Debt service, page 153.
I don't know what kind of questions everybody's gonna have. I mean, this is our payment.
153.
153.
So right now, the city has an outstanding obligation next year of 13.9 million in debt. But what we do have outstanding though, in the grand total is about 398 million. But as of next year, as of right now, it's 13.9 million, and we have about 39 million in short-term debt outstanding that we'll have to be looking at to, put that into long-term debt in the fall.
Any questions on debt service? Counselor in
No,
seat
just a
five?
couple of quick comments, Madam President, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
The city is going to have to be looking in February of '23 to go into the long-term market. This past, well, I spent a couple of months, January, February, trying to not only teach the people, get them involved, but in the treasury is to strengthen their skill set, but to also go out and take care of the borrowing needs for the city at the time. Right now, the city's we did some long-term borrowing, and we also did some refunding that hadn't been done in years since Sean was city administrator at Fall River. And the refunding saved the city about, I can't remember the number now. It was a little about $1 million, and it was where we found a bond that had,
Financing?
no, actually, it's
They
called
call it
refunding.
refunding.
Okay,
but
and the
it-
reason they do that is because you can't change the deal with the bondholders. You
Right.
gotta figure out a way, and basically, when the bond was probably, it could have been 2012. I don't remember the exact year now. I'm sticking too many new numbers in my head, but we hit that like 10-year, little over halfway point. We were able to refund it.
Mhm.
Some of the savings will go to water and sewer, and then the rest of it will tailor down to the various bonds that we refunded. They don't treat it like a refinancing, but sometimes I like to think it's a big numbers game, where all you're really doing is shortening it up. But the point is you're saving money, but you do have about $39 million in short-term debt that's really going to have to be long-term debt in next February. So I think the city in the next couple of years is really going to have to manage the borrowing debt, general fund borrowing debt.
Counselor in seat five, did you have your hand up?
The debt service on Durfee School, that starts when, 23?
Yes, 50%. Oh, no, it actually started, I'm sorry, it actually started in fiscal '22.
So
The
tax
payback.
bills coming out now, does that reflect an increase?
The bills that are being processed right now are really estimated bills for next year. Okay, they're ready to go. They're going to be, I don't know if they're going to print it yet, but they're going to be printed very shortly.
They're on track.
And normally the way it works is you would take 50% of minus the exemptions of what you billed last year in the final bill, and you can send that to the taxpayers as an estimated bill.
So there is an increase.
They'll see a slight increase in this estimated bill for next year, and then it'll be reconciled when the city sets the tax rate and does the tax classification.
So the December bill is going to be
That's
the
right.
big increase.
Yeah, and that's where you'll see the real first impact of the 50% of the
That's so
debt exclusion
confusing for people.
on the Durfee. It'll
Well,
be in
you
your,
estimate $65, right?
Well, that's
that-
that's only on the median price of a $270,000 house. That's valued at FY22 rates.
yeah, we have a chart, I think that I don't know who passed it out or.
With the reval and everything else, when does that start kicking in, getting the monies from the revaluation in the city? Some of the, tree deckers, 250,000, now they go 450, 450 be a right figure. When did they stop paying the taxes on that?
The reval it would be implemented in fiscal '24, so I believe the first fiscal '24. Yeah, you won't really see the effect of that reval until that following time when you do tax classification and tax rate, for the city. So it'll be a couple of years before you would actually see any impact of a full
Well,
revaluation, and
we'll
then
know
it'll
when it
go
kicks
5
in.
years out.
When it kicks in, we'll know. They'll be all over us like a new suit.
But proportionally, as the values will go up, from a revaluation, you should see the tax rate, proportionally come down, except for, this is a crazy world we live in. I mean, as far as values go, what's going on in the real estate market is absolutely nuts.
Well, I'm hoping that we can get enough money. What is the attraction for you two people to come to Fall River? What is the attraction for somebody else around to come to Fall River? I mean, we can't keep them. We used to have people come in for 4 or 5 months, gone, get another job, get another job. We lost a lot of people here because the money is better somewhere else. So how do you say, hey, listen, this is what we got for you? And why are you coming to Fall River?
Challenge.
You know, why are you coming to Fall River? I mean, what's the attraction? I mean, your boat here, your boat came to Fall River. Yeah, one guy had the job. He turned it down. You come up, you're happy with 130,000. I'm glad somebody's happy. You know what I mean? You know, you seem to be doing a good job. You're still smiling after how many? 2 months you've been here?
It's been a little longer than 2
Oh,
months.
yeah. All right. So we get to know you.
I started in January.
And good luck to you. You know, and you're right. It's training. You're training. You start somebody at this level, and then they move to that level, and you make sure they get enough money to live and survive. And Florida just don't seem to attract them type of people, and we don't seem to keep that type of people. So I'm hoping you two guys be here a little longer, you know. But
I gotta say, with the plans that people have for the city and the Route 79 project and a lot of things that are happening, I think we're really on the cusp of something amazing. And I know people have heard that before, but I really believe that. I think this place, and you know, both geographically, the people that are being drawn to Fall River, kind of where we are in proximity to, you know, to Providence, to Boston, to the Cape, to Southern Rhode Island. I mean, is there a better location in Massachusetts? There really isn't. So I don't think it's a hard question to answer
You're right.
while we're here.
because you can always come to Fall River and travel to the Flint or the Cape or Newport. I mean, you know.
I had
that's
lunch
good.
in the Flint yesterday. It was great.
With that, I yield. Let's just keep up the good work. Let's try to get these people in and let them get acquainted and stay here for 5, 10, 8 years till they retire. You don't see that too much. We had guys working here for 30 years, 32 years, don't retire, and they didn't want to retire. I think we got a girl in the water department's got about 45, 50 years. Colleen, how many years she got in the water department? Long time.
Long time.
She didn't want to leave. You know, the water must be good. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor in seat 2, Counselor Camara.
Thank you. And when you talk about refunding,
Right.
are we extending the life of that loan?
No, no.
So it stays in the same?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's sort of where it sort of shortens it up. And the formula is crazy how they calculate the interest rate. It's
So
really
it's like-
crazy.
Yeah, it's like
It's almost like a mortgage.
well, it's a little
You're
different because there's
shortening the
several interest
years
rates
you save.
involved
Right.
in a bond.
Yeah.
Like 1.12, like all, like probably, I couldn't even guess right now. And so what you're doing is you're reducing your total interest that you're paying. So you're keeping the life of the bond, but you're reducing the total principal and interest that you're going to be paying.
For the same length of years, same
Yes.
balance. You're
No,
not
I
paying
don't-
off the
Right.
balance.
But the good news
No.
is that the net effect is you save like $1 million on
In
the
interest.
10-year balance on just interest alone. Hey, I mean, saving money is, I mean, it's a good thing, you know?
Yeah, I
Because
don't-
we were going in the bond market, the city was going in the bond market anyway. So it wasn't like we were adding additional expenses of borrowing. You know, we were going to go in the bond market anyway.
It's going to be more expensive to borrow in the future, I can tell you that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
which
I mean, that's
is-
why we want to utilize, funds appropriately and invest the ARPA money like we should so that we're not going out and incurring more debt because the interest rate's already climbing.
Oh, yeah. With that, I yield. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor in seat 3, Council Vice President Dion.
Thank you. What is the interest rate on the Durfee project? I know initially it was 4.5. I think it went down since then.
That's going to be a mixed
You know, it is a mix. I know it's a mixed
So
rate.
it's a
but
mixed rate. I mean,
don't have it
we
in
can
my
get
head.
the information for you, but it's not just one, it's not like your mortgage where you're going to pay
Right.
3.25%.
Right.
There's going to be several because it's broken out into pieces the way a bond works. So I don't have that here. I can get that for you.
Plus the original number had I believe a $10 million addition to it. Came in $10 million higher.
No, but right now, the way it's structured, the bulk of the Durfee High School has been borrowed. There's still a $16.5 million piece that will have to long-term borrowed in February of 23.
Mhm. No. So at this point, what is it, what is the dollar amount per 100,000?
You know, I have that in this book, but it's gotten so thick, I'm trying to think when the heck it is.
And like the total debt or just the payment for the year?
Yeah, the pay, you know, the payment.
The effect on someone's, on
Yeah, I
people paying the,
list, I don't know if I.
the override.
It's in your initial presentation.
That's what I thought. It wasn't the initial presentation.
Well,
but,
I
you know,
see
didn't-
65, I see.
Yeah, I didn't put a
sorry.
copy in this book.
I didn't know you were talking about just the Durfee
Yeah.
debt
Yeah,
exclusion.
just the Durfee.
Yeah, I mean, we have that, but we actually made up a chart, you know, with the single family, two family, three
Well, I
family.
have that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, that chart should be.
$133 for the year, $65, 50 is 50% on the 2,250,000, but that doesn't tell me how much per 100,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, per 100,000.
Because at
Well,
one
if
time we
you-
were told the dollar amount of $69 per 100,000. So I'm just curious what the dollar amount ended up coming out to.
Yeah, so if you
So
just
people
if
can
you just take
calculate.
that
It's
first
a
line,
little
Yeah,
lower
I
than
can't
that.
see it from here, but yeah. If you,
You want it?
yeah, if you just look at the first, yeah, we should be able.
take that first line, just divide it by 3.
And then my other question is, you
Right,
addressed
like that.
single, two-family,
Still gotta use my
three-family,
fingers.
commercial, and industrial. What category did 4, 5, and 6 families go into?
Commercial.
They are all in commercial. All right.
You use a microphone, Ed.
Is it
I
6
think-
up to 6? Yeah.
Yeah.
6 units.
Yeah, 4, 5, and 6, they consider.
So use that.
Yeah, so that by the third.
Can we, you said 4, 5, and 6 families were all considered commercial for this
Yeah.
purpose?
4 tenement houses commercial?
It's either 4 or 6, I can't remember.
I thought it was 6.
Well, only because none of them are addressed here,
No,
that's why, yeah.
And I think that
Well,
was the
that's Mr.
purpose. I
Aguirre.
think that was the break point because the majority of them. I don't need to talk
Sorry, can you just come back to the
Yeah.
table and talk in the mic? Thank you.
So just to cut to the chase, because we got some more stuff to do today. My understanding is that it's less than what was originally estimated per 100,000. It ends up, I think, being about $45 per 100,000 residential. All right. So obviously that's different when you get to commercial. So I think it ends up, you know, we're looking at maybe $10 per 100,000 less than what was originally estimated. And there's any number of reasons why that is the case, considering that money's slightly more expensive to borrow now than it was. But bottom line is I know that there's been a lot of conversation as to why it was hard to get to that number. And at the end of the day, like Ed and Bridget said, it's a variable, it's a blended interest rate. So there's multiple interest rate because it's a bond. And so you can give that answer
Mhm.
6 months ago, and it really would have been a different answer. So this is the closest we can get right now.
Okay, thank you, with that I yield.
Thank you, Counselor in seat 6, Counselor Pereira.
The question I have, or the comment that I want to make, Ed, is that when you just talked about the tax bills going out, the first bills to go out are
Right.
estimated.
Estimates.
That is so hard for people to get an understanding of,
I know.
because it's estimated, and then the last bills that they get
I'll reconcile.
are reconciled. So those bills are higher, so they think that their tax bill went up a tremendous amount when it's not at all what it is.
Yeah.
Is there any way to fix that?
Not really. When they
Mm.
when they allowed like Fall River to adopt I think it was adopted
Quarterly,
during-
yeah, we used to
quarterly
pay
during the
twice a
land,
year.
maybe the administration. It's been a while, quite a while ago they adopted it.
Been a
I
while.
think. And
Jack Madeira said we were going to be sending out monthly bills at the rate we were going.
well, and I hate to tell you this, but in the city of New Bedford, they send out monthly water and sewer bills.
Yeah.
Okay, anyways, when they put the quarterly tax billing system in, prior to that I thought it was
Right.
a big deal when they went twice a year. I do remember slightly being annual. That might have been before my time. But the quarterly, the only way they could do it, and the whole idea was to generate cash flow so that the city could bring in, revenue, with the billing period. And that's how it came to work on being estimated the first two bills.
But
With the
I do
first
get
one
a
being,
lot of-
I think the first one's due August 1st, and then it's whatever the hell it is.
In November, every 4 months.
And then
3
one
months.
thing that the reason why Fall River did so well during the pandemic is because a significant amount of the homeowners escrow their taxes.
Right.
Which, so essentially they are kind of paying it monthly. So it helps not be, and the way the banks figure your escrow balance, what it has to be, hopefully it won't be as much of a hit.
Then their mortgage goes up after, when the tax goes up.
I know.
They call me, so it's like, okay. Then I try to explain that that was an estimated bill, but you know.
Right.
Anything further on debt service? Seeing none, assessments, pension, state and county assessments and reserves, page 305.
Good. Those are all the assessments we have.
Where the hell? It's 305, yeah, I'm sorry. Excuse me.
Well, so so the retirement contributions, I mean, I don't know if anybody has any questions, but we don't have a choice. We're told what to pay.
Right.
So there's a, small increase, but that's because the state of Massachusetts requires what you contribute to try to get the OPUB, I think it's what, 2036, they want it paid in full?
Right.
Fully funded, and who knows what that'll happen with the interest rates. But,
I mean,
and then
yeah.
then the following on 305 is the assessments. I mean,
Most of the assessments that just come through on the, on the
Yeah,
cherry sheet that we get from the state every year. Matter of fact, we're waiting right now for the conference committee between the House Ways and Means and Senate Ways and Means. So that we obviously we have an interest because we want the Senate version to prevail, which hopefully it will. And maybe that's where we're anticipating some increase in unrestricted state aid, and it was one other category. I think it was state owned land that they're going to make an adjustment on, for this year, because a lot of times, for a lot of times it goes flat for a few years and you don't really see an increase. And retirement, as you know, because of the actuarial schedule, we get a schedule every year from the retirement board. I think next January they will update it again for the next, actuarial. They keep obviously they keep changing it, and upgrading it and updating it.
Councilor in seat 4, Councilor Kilby.
Thank you. Yeah, the only question I have is the years I was on the school committee, and probably council could continue to attest to this. We had a vote come before us on participating in school choice.
Right.
And maybe this is a question for the school department. If it's not, in you guys' wheelhouse, then
Yeah.
it's okay. But I see school choice here, $1.2 million to participate in school choice. Obviously, which means that an individual who's in a school department can choose to go to Somerset, Dartmouth, or another high school, but we have to fund that per pupil expenditure, I
Right,
guess
because
what I'm
if,
getting at.
Yeah, the
if
money
you-
follows
if-
the child.
Right, because if you accept it, I'm not sure, did Fall River accept it?
Yeah, if you accept it, it's got to work both ways.
Yeah, that's right, that's right, it has to work both
We
ways.
have students that leave the district
Yeah.
more than coming in.
So the
Yeah.
school committee made a decision to participate in school choice. And,
Yeah.
and that allocation is for that.
Yeah.
So it's reciprocal though, so they.
Well, yeah, I didn't, if I remember right, you can't be one way, it's gotta be two-way operation.
I know we, as a result of these numbers that we're looking at right now, I know we always, for the 10 years I was on the school committee, we always chose not to participate in school choice. But for me, I'm looking at that number, that's an alarming number, so.
But if you look, I'm trying to think now, if you look on the revenue side, if you look in the front of the budget book, where I think there might be a line in there that might have some reference to school choice side. You have to take a look at it. Just crying out, I really don't, unless it's you getting involved with the school committee on it.
Yeah, it's just a general
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
But I could follow up.
Yeah.
With the department. So Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions on pension? Counselor seat 7, Counselor Reposo?
Just curious, what are the offsets on
The
page
off-
305?
The offsets are really charges that we charge back. For example, we were charging back some library grants for for share of the pension, and the schools, we have a small chargeback for certain people. When they send the city the assessment, they send the entire assessment. And then what we do is we calculate where we can recover pension money. Okay. And then they also send us, like, we get to see I think it's the housing authority, and I think there might be is there something on there for dime? I don't have that sheet in front of me, but there's a whole, and then what we do is we look at the city's portion and then break it up. And in the budget, you'll see there's like an allocation to the schools and an allocation, but the combination of both those numbers are what the city of Fall River share is. And the rest we try to recover as much as we can.
I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Anything further on state and county assessments or reserves?
Oh, okay. All right.
Does the administration have anything on state and county assessments or reserves?
Oh.
No, Madam President.
Right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next section is public safety.
Excuse me.
I'm sorry, Counselor in seat 3, Counselor Dion?
Before we do public safety, there's something I'd like to touch on from last night. It'll be brief.
What department?
On the solid waste. We had somewhat of a little bit of a conversation. It kind of got interrupted, and it bothered me when I left because I knew that part of the conversation was correct, and that one of my statements you corrected, you were right in correcting it. I was wrong. But I knew there was another component to this. So when I went home, I pulled out my folder. I just want to read, Easy shall collect and haul acceptable waste at least once per week from every residential dwelling within Fall River that has city collection service limited to 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 family buildings, special businesses on Exhibit H, which we agreed on. And it also states, let's see, and their successors. Okay, so we agreed on that. That was the accurate statement. When I said other businesses as well, I was incorrect in terms of the pink bins. However, what happened with this was suddenly trash carts started going out to other businesses. That's where it fell off the rail. I believe this is outside of ordinance, that this shouldn't be an issue. However, if we take that away, Exhibit H has 71 businesses on it. The city of Fall River is picking up trash at 266 businesses. So we're picking up recyclables and trash at 195 businesses that were never included in this contract, which means way back when we started discussing this, letters could have immediately gone out to tell 195 businesses, we're not going to pick up your trash or recyclables anymore. So when I look at this, even if I drop it down to $150,000 that we could potentially save over a 10-year period would be $1.5 million. We're in our 6th year of the contract. And not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, but I would suggest the fact that all of this is outside of city ordinance. I would much rather take the chance on 71 businesses suing the city of Fall River than the taxpayers of Fall River, whose money has been misappropriated and literally thrown in the trash. Because that's what happened with this. And with that, I yield.
Thank you. The administration, do you have a response?
At this point, I don't disagree at all, Counselor Dion, at all. There are some significant problems with some of the choices that were made with regard to trash going back some period of time. The administration does very much want to fix this, but I think we're just trying to do it in a way that, one, exposes the city as little as possible to litigation. But I think the bigger concern is to know where we go next. And I think that's really where the trash committee comes in. That's where there's some voices that we probably need to be more intentional about hearing from in order to figure out, where do you go? Because to say, this is out of ordinance, we don't like this agreement, whatever we're going to say, but then not know where we go from here, I think has the potential to be a disaster. Trash has been sort of a third rail around here in different ways for a long time. And part of the reason that's been the case, I think, and this is just anecdotal and my own sort of understanding of what the history is. I wasn't, really around for it or involved in city government.
No, you weren't. No, you weren't.
But my
Yes.
understanding is that, a number of folks at different times looked at certain solutions, didn't really understand the full implications of those solutions, jumped into them, realized that there was a significant number of residents who like, no, this isn't what we want. This, disproportionately affects us in X, Y, and Z ways. And there just wasn't the buy-in, the education, the understanding of what the implications of the next steps were. So I'm not saying that we're not going to do anything. I'm not saying that we are going to do something. I'm just saying that we are working really hard to understand what the right next step would be and what that is actually going to cost, what that would look like, what steps we need to go through to do it. And frankly, I think with the rising cost of trash and the difficulty in both pickup and hauling away, I would venture to say that all of the contractors who are involved in this as well want to fix the issue. I don't think this works for anybody. And that's just, anecdotal, but I think it needs to be fixed, but it needs to be fixed in a thoughtful way. And I think we're going to look to the committee, the trash committee, to help with that because it's, something I think has to happen. We need to make sure that some of the obvious inequities are resolved. The commercial trash is an easy one, but resolved in a way that doesn't open the city to litigation. So. Thank you.
I think another part of what bothers me about this whole thing is, in the past, granted, you're saying the number's much lower. In the past, $300,000 was put out, was the number that was stated. But what doesn't matter, whether it's 150, 200, 250, 300,000, that represents monies that can be used for the people that everybody talks about, that you want to retain these people, you want to pay people better. If we have $150,000, $200,000, that's how many inspectors or how many firemen or how many, we can utilize those funds. It just drives me crazy. But with that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. It's 8 o'clock. The council's going to take a 15-minute recess.
Okay.